Welcome everyone to the Comic Collectors Corner podcast, where we're going to review Amazing Spider-Man number 25, Legacy 919, and number 26, Legacy 920. This is Mary Jane's story. So, writer Zeb Wells, Carrie Andrews, and John Romita Jr. is the artist inside. Carrie Andrews and Scott Hanna the inker. Marco Menez colorist, and VC's Joe Caramunga is the letterer. We see a review. We basically see almost like a flashback. Peter being sent back off the portal. Ronin's not taking it very well, and saying that she has to die. She has to accept her chains. And I'm gonna be reborn. Maybe he be reborn, the god of death that he worships. One day later, Paul's trying to get Mary Jane to leave because the emissary knows where they are, but she slaps him, yelling at him, "Peter's gonna come back for me. He's gonna come here. I can't leave. Just do not touch her. He's gonna patch the hole." A month later, Paul's working on what's going to turn out to be the jackpot machine to give Mary Jane her powers. Mary Jane comes in from patrolling the perimeter. A couple months later, she and Paul are hurt after their standoff with the emissary, and she recognizes that they can't stay there. A week later, they're still traveling through Hell York or Sebulba. Mary Jane looks up to the sky and just wondering, "Where are you, Peter?" 3 months after that, they are skipping by for food. Mary Jane finds baby food. And it turns out Paul and her find the children. So Mary Jane is not a mother. She is, they find these abandoned children, or children whose parents died as a result of living in Sebulba. But the little boy knows who the emissary is. Week after that, they're still in a tent in the woods, just trying to survive. Paul has the obvious thing that just having kids with us is going to make it hard to survive. Mary Jane's going to basically then leave us. "I'm not leaving the kids." And Paul's like, "I would never say that." Mary Jane understands. He says, I know you wouldn't." And then a month later, we see the boy and the girl opening up to Mary Jane. It looks like they're building a house out there in the woods. 3 months after that, they have a primitive device set up by Paul that Paul's been working on for Mary Jane's jackpot powers. They have a slip or whatever, and holding a hand and a eye connection between the two of them. Then we see a montage of days, months, winters, summers. Paul working outside with the gardening, Mary Jane playing with the kids, Mary Jane giving the girl a bath. Then Paul and Mary Jane giving the kids a bath. Paul submitting that he should have told her something. Them actually growing closer while cooking dinner. Them staring off into them laying down in a field, staring at each other, which some people said it does not show intimacy. I see it as something that grows a connection. They might not be intimate or together, but this is your only other adult in the world. You are relying on that person to help protect you, to help the two of you are protecting each other or protecting kids. There's a connection that forms. You know what I mean? More fighting of the demons, more symbols that put shield around the house, teaching children to read, playing. Then all of a sudden, one day, the emissary shows up and rushes the kids off to protection. And then here comes Mary Jane with her powers. It doesn't work at first, but then it succeeds in working for the first time. Holds him off long enough to, and then between that and Paul trying to protect Mary Jane, holds him off long enough to here comes Peter. defeats Peter, and this is more like a review of the pages. The emissary is quote unquote defeated and killed, and here are the kids, and then we pop back into the real world where they're sitting in a hospital, look like wishing room, waiter's room, because Paul was hurt. Mary Jane was finished off explaining the story, and just reviewing that. I don't know if Mary Jane knew, but reviewing for the first time that it was a month ago, and time difference was 4 years for her. But here's the thing, you and Paul, yes, me and Paul and Romy and Owen, so it makes it seem like they're not together, but they are the bonds of survival. They are a makeshift family, but they weren't I don't know if they still can't find out if they're together or not, or if they're just staying together to protect and raise the kids that they found. You know what I mean? Peter leaves the room after Mary Jane talks to the doctor about Paul and his can't find records they can't find on him. Fantastic Four meet Peter in the parking lot, and Johnny is mad at Peter, and Peter just starts throwing punches at Human Torch. Looks like he actually succeeds in cracking Ben Grimm's chest because we see a crunch. Mr. Fantastic tries to rope up Peter, and he tries to punch Mr. Fantastic and is protected by an invisible airbag. Peter is just, invisible woman saying, like, we don't need to start a fight, and Peter says, I want to fight. I want someone to hit me back. And Captain America shows up after just having talked to Mary Jane, and then just tells the Fantastic Four to let him go, that he knows what happened after talking to Mary Jane, and we could have helped. This could have been a whole lot gentler. But Peter's like, he wasn't not fast enough, and I wasn't even fast enough. And just defeated, looks down and telling them to just go. Captain America takes the Fantastic Four off with him. That he's in a bind. He has to see his way out of it. And they walk off, leaving Peter crouching alone in the dark in a panel remnant to how he looked after he lost Uncle Ben in Amazing Fantasy 15. I love the detail of Captain America's shield, because if I'm not mistaken, it looked like Peter cracked it, or broke it in the previous issue, and it looks like the shield's just been patched together this time, for this issue. We see a gray out kind of flashback look of Peter walking out on his friend, Aunt May with a mountain of paper on the phone with mountains full, looks like bills. Peter looks like Peter's punching Paul. And then just walking by himself on New York Street. And then we flash back to Sebulba, where the emissary is getting up. It was him who failed Wyatt, that he was the symbol of the ceremony's failure, and to complete it, he had to die. And now, with the great power of Wyatt infuses me, begging to be a god once more. I have only to claim it. With the sacrifice, the ceremony must be finished. The Scarlet Woman must die. Mary Jane must die. To be continued. So I'll get to the backup issue in here in a second. This issue had to do one thing for me. It had to sell me the belief. It had to sell me a story between Mary Jane and Paul that would explain how Paul ended up with Mary Jane ended up with Paul, and it succeeded. Now, whether or not they're actually together, actually married, or they're together to protect the kids, because we found these two kids, we're their quote unquote parents now, and they're staying together because they are really great friends, are good friends now. I mean, you hear stories from soldiers and things like that going, war changes people. The phrase, these band of brothers. you know, strangers who have nothing in common from all over the United States. You throw them in the same unit, throw them in the middle of hell, getting shot at, getting almost killed on a daily basis. It connects people and forms a deep, deep bond. I have never served in any armed branch. It was my dream as a kid, or I was a goal as a kid, but I failed to get in for some reason. And so I never served, but I understand that connection. And Mary Jane and Paul lived in a war for 4 years. They found kids. They survived. You can see scenes constantly trying to kill them. They protected these kids. There is a relationship there. They might not be husband and wife, but there is a bond there that connects them. So she just cannot leave. Maybe she just cannot leave Paul to a world that he might not be from in the 616, or they're staying together because they found these kids and they need to protect them. They are their parents. And the thing, another one of those things of we stayed together for the kids. How many times have we heard that for reasons why two people who hate each other are still together because they had kids and they wanted to stay together for the kids. But as soon as the kids grew up, graduated high school or graduated college and moved out, they separated. This might be another one of those cases, honestly. Now, so like I said, it succeeded on that run for me. It told me a believable story. On how Mary Jane all of a sudden got powers, which is no different to me than Iron Man, or than Iron Man. A device that gives her powers. She wasn't bitten by a radioactive slot machine and got jackpot powers. She didn't find a magical ring or wake up and all suddenly she was gifted. She didn't make a wish to the Dragon Balls and to have powers. But it was a technology that was made to protect more technology that was made to protect them while they survived, and it just uses it to protect her family now in the 616. The artwork was great. Yeah, this Sarah Connor Terminator look was, how they're all muscly and buff in this world, and then the second they get back to a 616, they deflate. Is a little a little weird, but it's whatever it is. It sold me a believable story, and I will always ship Spider-Man and Mary Jane, or Mary Jane and Peter Parker. I always want the marriage. I want the marriage back. They're still married in my opinion. I want the marriage back, and I will always want the marriage back. But for now, I can be patient. For now, I can accept Mary Jane and Paul because we don't know what's going to happen to Paul in the future. We don't know what's going to happen to those kids in the future. For now, it told me a story that I can accept this character of Paul. That I can accept who he is, and now he just came out of nowhere. So, that being said, my grade for the first half of this, for the main issue of this book, I will give it a A minus. I want to say B plus, but no, hold on. I will go ahead and give it I'll stick with A minus. A very low, 90%, A minus. There's a few things I just said don't quite like about it. I don't like the fact that she says, "I'm sorry, Peter, I'm not leaving him." I don't like the fact that well, of course we know that she would have stayed with him anyway because this is in the past view, so yeah, she stays with him. So I don't like I don't like that she's that we finally understand, that we finally find out why. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. There's little things wrong that there's just I don't quite buy certain things, or there's little details I would have changed. My A minus is not a result of the bad story, but it's a result of preferences, things I would have done differently that aren't there. That's my grade. That's the reason for my grade. I'm sorry if I don't make sense. Sometimes it's hard for me to make my own sense. So A minus for the main story. So now the backup story. Welcome to Omaha. Peter and Felicia are in Omaha for a friend's wedding. Talking about how Felicia's teasing him, going like, "Why are you being a grumpy? You like weddings? You cried watching Deadpool's wedding video." And they're talking about talking about, I guess, other mushy stuff. Felicia is going in there. Peter drops off a gift into the gift box, which somebody stole. Someone's running out the door. Peter is yelling out to stop, chasing after them, and then grumbly putting on a spider mask on. I wish one day I could just bring this mask and not have to use it. So he's going up in the air, swinging through the sky rises of Omaha, and then quite suddenly, he's like, how is he already in the suburbs? Running over the street or running over the top of an office building, then, I will stop them. I will get there. Oh, great, a freeway. He can't swing through a freeway either. On top of vehicles, chasing down the car. Looks like they are half a mile from Des Moines, Iowa. Because I see an exit. Oh no, I see an exit for exit 49, and then an exit for Des Moines in Des Moines, Iowa, in half a mile. Gets the package back from them. And then he has to make that one wedding disaster averted. Taxi! No taxi. Running down the side of a cornfield, sighing, and then just sitting down there with the package this package present. Someone stops by. There you go. Need a ride, dude? Rides back at the wedding. Here's the presents. Felicia's teasing him that he looks like he took a dirt bath and he'll do anything to be out of that. And Peter says he has to stop a thief. She asks if she should be jealous. No. And then she just teases him the lengths would go to not to dance with me. And then he's sorry, I'll make it up to her. Maybe next time. Because the last dance just ended. And Peter's like, the night's not over. She's like, oh, we're not in New York. Things end at 10 o'clock here in the Midwest. And Peter asked what the wedding song is. My heart will go on. You would have cried like a baby. And Peter's going, dang it. It's a nice, cute little story. It reminds me of one of the ASM books from the 200s or 300s, like Spider-Man to the Suburbs. In Homecoming, when Peter he can't swing through the skyscrapers anymore. He's going through the suburbs. There are no tall buildings. He's running across a golf course driving range. That's what the fun part of this story reminded me of. Just, he's at a wedding, he's at a place. He quickly goes through any swingable buildings into the suburbs where now he has to run across buildings, and then he quickly ends that and he's on a freeway where he can't do that, where he can't even do that. So the issue on ASM 25, that backup issue, I give it an A+. Actually, no, I'll give it an A. And the only reason I will give it an A instead of an A+ is this one panel. Until I read the name, this one panel here, I thought Peter Parker was talking to a very long-haired, silver-haired man. Felicia looked like a man in this panel, or a woman who got beat up in the boxing ring, because I could have swore she had half as much hair on her chin as Peter did. So, that being said, A instead of A+. Overall, like I said, I give this an A-, low A-, high B+. Like I said, it depends on the day. It depends on the time. I fluctuate back and forth because the story's not over yet. There's one more issue, number 26, where Spider-Man will never be the same. Things will never be the same. We're at this point. I know I've been spoiled, but I didn't mind because I can still enjoy the issue, even though I know one thing that's going to happen. So there's still one thing I definitely know about. Well, other than we can all agree that eventually the good guys always win. So we know that this emissary and his god in Wyatt is not going to succeed. They're going to fail. So, spoiler alert for those of you who, didn't know that comic books, the bad guys never win. But this is just a very, very, very high B+ to a very low A-. Just little things like that. So, but the main thing, my grade on this book, again, I knew it was going to come down to one thing: Mary Jane's story. And did I like it? Did I like it? And was it believable to explain how she would end up with Paul and what happened? It didn't tell us everything. It left plenty of room to figure things out. It left plenty of room for them to even end things relatively cleanly. Maybe she's staying with him because Paul has no records here in the MCU. And we've all heard these stories of undocumented citizens and all that, and how difficult things are that things that are hard because they don't have documents, they don't have this, they have to work cash jobs, or they have that just how these things are difficult for them, and so they rely on this other person, green card marriages and all that stuff, right? So what if Paul is the green card, that he's only in the MCU and relatively whatever because he is quote unquote married to Mary Jane? Who knows? So high B+, low A-. It sold me a story that I can believe and am good enough and is good enough for me right now until the future. All right, that's issue number 25 here. Now we're going to move on to Amazing Spider-Man number 26. This is the variant cover. I ultimately bought 4 different variant covers for this because I just couldn't pass up any of them. So let's get down to it. So you already know my grade from last issue. Writer Zeb Wells, cover artist John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, Marco Martinez, penciler John Romita Jr., inker Scott Hanna, Marco Martinez, and Erica Arcinga, I think, colorist. VC Joe Caramunga as the letterer. We open with Kamala Khan in the HR department applying for the internship at Oscorp, where she promises the guy there that she'll do whatever it takes to do a good job. In New York, Ruben has come back in a snowstorm. Mary Jane's worried about Paul and the kids, Gold Goblins. Norman showed up with the Gold Goblins, saying his team's gonna look after them. Miss Marvel shows up here for saying, I messed up my entry. Can I pretend I said something cool? But Ruben's only after one thing: the death of Mary Jane to complete the ceremony. Spider-Man obviously very upset at this guy for ruining his life. As we now play a game of keep away with Mary Jane, protecting Mary Jane. But he's not alone. Ruben showed up, whatever. He has a image carved in Central Park to bring forth the symbology monster, that dragonish monster that is actually based on Mayan culture, Aztec culture. It's a Central American history that I'm just not very familiar with, and I'm not going to even attempt to remember the name because I don't want to insult anybody who's of that heritage who might be listening to this. So, but that monster bursts forward out of the ground. Spider-Man, Miss Marvel, and Gold Goblin don't know what they're gonna do. But Ruben is like talking to Mary Jane, like, I see you, Mary Jane. I see you, Scarlet Woman. You're still wearing my bindings, plural bindings. They say family doesn't belong in this world, not even Paul. Do you know where Paul even comes from? We see a brief flashback of Mary Jane and Paul in some apartment. Peter's in there confronting them. He's not even from this world. what is your real name? Which we find out it is Rabin, Paul Jeremiah Rabin. And so Spider-Man's naturally upset, going, "You're the cause of this. He is the emissary of the other world." And Paul just gets so upset that, the only real problem with this issue, or huge problem, is that when Paul punches Peter, his hoodie changes from red to blue. So and Mary Jane's jacket changes from green to purple. Paul's actually manages to stay the same, but still, actually, his shirt changes from white to creamy yellow color. So whoever the letter, it's not JR's fault, but the colorist who screwed up here. But Mary Jane knows all about Paul. He's seen his guilt, his pain. He's a good man. Basically, he reminds me of you, Peter. So be quiet, behave. Back in the fight. The emissary, basically does some magic here. And that the chains and the bindings that he created, that Mary Jane accepted, serve their purpose and leading him to this world, and does a little magic. And across town, we see the two kids fade away into nothing. So apparently, they were never real. They were created with the carving in the sand back in Amazing Spider-Man 20, was it 2 or 3? It was like part 2 or 3. I forget which part it was. But kids just disappear. But it explains to me why the boy always said, "I can hear the scribble man." Really I mean, I don't know why I didn't catch. I always thought it was a little suspicious that the little boy could hear it, but I couldn't think of an explanation reason why. But now I know it. But Mary Jane, well, any parent, grows, any parent or guardian who grows close to kids, and to basically say, "I killed your kids," now Mary Jane flips out using her watch jackpot powers and blasts the emissary, screaming that he is mine. Here comes the Fantastic Four showing up after Peter says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, calm down. We need to be smart about this." Some little one-liners here at Spider-Man's expense, but all boiling down to, "You are an idiot, but we still love you. We're here to help." And so they go off to take care of the giant dragon, Central American dragon, Aztec dragon that showed up. Well, Spider-Man needs to take care of Mary Jane. So Ms. Marvel and Spider-Man punching. Spider-Man basically tells, Ms. Marvel, "Protect Mary Jane, get her out of here." We see the Fantastic Four and Gold Goblin fighting the dragon. Then flashback again to the fight where Spider-Man's, whacking away at, the emissary, but, "I am this powerful, space and time open before me," and he disappears into two different pieces. After Mary Jane, back to the dragon. We're talking about symbologies and quantum information, how it's another language Norman's computers are analyzing, and Mr. Fantastic is saying that languages don't die. They introduce mutations. If we introduce mutations into the words, we can skip the translation and move directly to this little girl saying, "Read, you're geeking out again. Just skip to the solution." And so he forms a symbol with his hand to Johnny, saying, "Burn this symbol into his head." They do, and the guy crumbles to dust. The dragon crumbles to dust. Meanwhile, Miss Marvel's playing keep away with Mary Jane, and they briefly split up here. Rabin shows up, and Mary Jane's, we get ready to fight, and the emissary stabs him. Rabin stabs Mary Jane. Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But stabs Mary Jane. Sacrifice is made. I have done it. I have done it. Ceremony is complete. Peter arrives upset. Mary Jane. Mary Jane, no. And we find out that something's wrong. The god Wyatt inside the emissary saying, "But you're blasphemous." Disintegrator. I can't remember that. I can't figure out what that word is. Sorry, I apologize. I brought you the Scarlet Woman. Liar. No. And then the god basically melts and crumbles the emissary to dust, because it turns out here, when Mary Jane and the Fantastic Four show up, that it was Miss Marvel disguised as Mary Jane, and she's asking Peter, did she do good? Because her belief, her saying is, good is not a thing. She says good is not a thing you are, it is a thing you do. But then she dies. You see everyone sad about her passing. Paul shows up. Paul shows up. Mary Jane asks Paul about the kids, and he confirms that they died. And both Paul and Mary Jane are upset and hold each other as Spider-Man holds Miss Marvel, and the Fantastic Four, Norman, are all sad about what's going on. And here is the image that leaked 2 weeks early. Now, as far as the leak is concerned, before I give it my grade and all that, I had a theory that either people believe that I think the evidence shows, or I think like the leak came from deep inside Marvel. Now, I don't know if the leak that came for ASM 26 here 2 weeks early was the fact that it was so decision to kill Miss Marvel or whatever, especially during Asian History Month, and being a female woman of color who's a Muslim, that decision was so unpopular that I'm just going to leak my displeasure out. Or the other thought that crossed my mind was, maybe the people responsible leaked it on purpose. Management leaked it on purpose because people are going to be so upset or so outbursting and angry, because the haters of this story arc and the current run of Zeb Wells are extremely loud, and that maybe they leaked this thing just to give people 2 weeks to, in a sense, quote, I'll use my fingers here in quotations, get over it. All right, let it out. So that way, when you're reading the book, it's no longer, this is absolutely bull, to, I hate this issue, in a regular tone. But that being said, I'm not going to discuss anymore. The whole kids as bearings, it makes sense. I don't quite understand why Miss Marvel HR interview at the very beginning here was needed. I felt it should have been done in a different book. But there's something about this. This book was definitely, I'm going to say this book was a B. Yeah. I'm going to say the final grade for this book is a B. Things like the color inconsistencies in the 2 pages of flashback with Peter, Paul, and Mary Jane, while not absolutely distracting for me, was huh, that was weird. I understand if things 2 different pages, where you have to flip the page over and then you miss it, but this is the same side of the same. This is basically, this is this where I'm holding the book here. You can't miss. If you can't compare one side of the page to the other before you flip it and notice things, you kind of screwed up just a little bit. The whole idea that I mean, it makes sense that you didn't complete the ceremony, therefore you must pay the consequence. So they outsmarted him. They outsmarted the emissary. So I do like that. The Fantastic Four, I like the fact that they showed up in here. I think they're at the very beginning here of this arc with Peter. That they're friends at the end. Even if I felt it was a bit awkward and it's a bit convenient that that Mr. Fantastic is here, carve this symbol into the creature's head, and then it crumbles to dust. It was like too easy of a solution. I felt that they should have fought the beast just a little bit longer, you know what I mean? But ultimately, I like it. The issue, it felt. I enjoyed the other issues more. This issue felt, I don't know if it was the colors just didn't seem as bright this time. Maybe it's because it was a wintry storm the whole time. Colors are not going to be naturally as bright, but it just felt like like something was duller in this issue. Things weren't as colorful or weren't as bright, figuratively and actually. So it just, I could not give it the A. It was just lackluster enough, with enough of with enough small problems here and there, that I give a final grade for this story a B. Now for the entire arc, I enjoyed this entire arc. I give the arc as a whole, I give it an A minus. A whole story arc here, an A minus in total. They just didn't quite land the plane the way they needed to here in issue 26. So those are my reviews of Amazing Spider-Man number 25 and 26. I hope you enjoy them. Please remember to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel here, Mr. Comics 89, or if you're listening to my a review on my Comic Collectors Corner podcast, please consider giving this podcast a follow and subscribe there. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time for the next few issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Take care and happy collecting.